Apple's Spring 2021 event unveiled a lot of things, and one of them is the iPad Pro. There's a lot to get into here, but let's just dive into why you should care about the iPad Pro, and iPad owners that are already out there, do you need to get it?
The M1 chip is not just in the Mac, it's now in iPad Pro.
Well, the iPad Pro came out last spring, 2020, and that was right at the beginning of the pandemic, and it's already been an expensive device. That time it introduced LiDAR and this Magic Keyboard accessory. The new iPad Pro moves to a processor that's been on the MacBook Air and the Mac Mini and the new iMac, which is the M1 processor. Now that processor has an 8-core CPU, an 8-core GPU, and Apple says that it's going to be 50% faster for the CPU and 40% faster for the GPU than the previous iPad Pro, which had an A12Z processor. That's a pretty big bump up in power, and that's how the iPad Pro has been. It's basically a sports car iPad, and it's promising to be incredibly fast and basically Mac-like. That does bring up the question of how the software is going to work, but right now it looks like iPad OS as we know it. The second thing about this iPad Pro that's really cool is the display. Now on the 11-inch iPad Pro, the display looks like it's going to largely be the same. On the 12.9-inch iPad Pro, there's now a Liquid Retina XDR display. This is based on mini LED technology. This is what was rumored to be in the new iPad Pro. Now Apple's claiming that the brightness and contrast and color accuracy are on par with Apple's Pro XDR display, which is incredibly expensive. This is going to have 1,000 to 1,600 nits of brightness, a 1,000,000:1 contrast ratio, and is supposed to be the best looking display Apple has made. Apple has often made claims about making the best display in a particular category of product, but this does sound incredibly promising. That will require a price bump up though if you want to get to that. The third thing that's interesting about these iPads, Thunderbolt. The USB-C port that was on the previous iPad Pro was pretty versatile in connecting to a variety of accessories. In fact, there are already accessories like the Kensington Studio Dock that look like basically a way to convert your iPad into an iMac. Now with Thunderbolt, Apple is promising 40 gigabits per second throughput and the ability to connect monitors with even larger resolution and external storage. So it sounds potentially like the ability to unlock the iPad into becoming this multi-connecting computer, the thing that we've been wanting all along. Now, with iPads, there's always a question of how limited that's going to be. I'm also curious what accessories will emerge. Will it work with existing Thunderbolt accessories, or will you have to get new ones? The next thing about this iPad, 5G. There's never been 5G on an iPad before. These iPad Pros have a 5G option, but it's going to cost $200 more on top of the already high price for the iPad Pro. Now, for anyone who's using it as something as like a standalone streaming device or, a work tool, sure, that may make a lot of sense. But between the cost of a 5G phone plan plus the cellular add-on price, that's a lot of money for the iPad Pro. Now, the thing I'm maybe most excited about is the camera. Apple has a new front-facing 122-degree ultra-wide camera that has a technology that they call center stage. Now this looks like the type of tech that I've seen in devices like Facebook Portal, which will zoom in digitally to follow you as you talk. Also, this ultra-wide camera is supposed to center your face so that finally you would look normal on an iPad when connecting with things like Zoom. That's the thing about iPads, is that while the camera quality is really great compared to, let's say, a MacBook Air or an iMac, the centering of the camera, especially on the side, has always been so weird that you have to adjust your face or look like you're not paying attention. It looks, based on what we've seen so far, that this iPad has solved that problem. Now that's the type of tech that I'd love to see in other iPads too, and I'm really excited to give that a test drive. Now here are the other things that you need to know about these iPads. First of all, they're not available yet. They're going to be available at the second half of May, and they're going on sale April 30th. The prices do vary depending on which model you pick. The 11-inch version and 12.9 both have the M1 processor, but only the 12.9 has that new Liquid Retina XDR display. So while the 11-inch one is $799 to start, the Liquid Retina XDR is $1099, which is a price bump. And there's also a 2 terabyte storage option. So get ready for this because the price can ramp up from a start of $799 for the base 128 configuration on the 11-inch to $2399 for the 12.9 with 5G and 2 terabytes. Okay, so that's a lot of money. And that's not even including the Magic Keyboard, the Pencil, which by the way, those stay the same, so there's no new version of those, but those are expensive too. That can rack up, several $100s or more easily. Plus you might want to get a dock. So who is this for? Rest assured, if you bought an iPad like last year's iPad Air, or you have an entry-level iPad, this device is probably not for you. This is a super expensive product, starting at best $800, and really it's going to eclipse $1,000 super easily. This is a race car iPad, and what Apple's promising for it does sound incredibly exciting. The power, the ability to blend AR, the improvements in camera, and the 5G part, all of those elements. But, has Apple really unleashed all of the possibilities with iPadOS to take on those things? We don't know yet. WWDC is around the corner. That could be when Apple really takes the training wheels off and goes even further into what the iPad could do. Because now that the iPad Pro has the same processor as the recent Macs, there's really no reason that the two shouldn't blend even further. But I think if you have one of those iPads, rest assured, if you've been looking at an iPad Pro, this looks like a fantastic one to get because it's a lot more upgraded than the one that came out last spring. But how much are you willing to pay? That is the question. I'm excited to test it out and take a look at it. That's not right now, but we'll follow up with a full review when we can. Thanks for watching.